Today we got a profiled beam house. It was left uncoated for 3 years, and that is what it led to. It gets yellowish from the sun, then it turns gray. So to repair it correctly we'll have to sand deep. End faces were not done. It already started to rot. You're gonna know all the subtleties of sanding and painting any type of wooden house. Hi everyone, my name is Sergey and I do the woodwork. I do assembly, painting and restoration. Today we got a profiled beam house. We're gonna show how to prepare it correctly. There are many subtleties in the painting process that you might not know. We're gonna dive deep and my task is to teach you to do the preparation correctly, or to be able to manage the team doing that. Each material has its own features that we are going to explore. This is a profiled beam, and its feature are these grooves. They help the assembly and insulation, they keep it warm. But when you are finishing the floor joists, the first layer, these grooves do the task of gathering dust, moisture, rain and snow. And that's why we cut it off completely, and then we sand the surface to be smooth, so that it will dry faster and it will be easier to clean the snow off. Again, this is the matter of durability. That is an important nuance to know. Also, pay attention to the construction design of your house. This house had a downpipe mounted very incorrectly. It was mounted so that the water was pouring on the end face. It's a 3-year-old house, but the end face has already started to break. We had to cut off the end face, because it's already started to rot. We cut it off and sand it. And we're gonna mount a downpipe in a different way. We're gonna put it much lower, so that water will never get to the end face. Designing a house, pay attention to avoid joints on the wall. All these are insulation leaks, it's gonna be trouble. The design should avoid joining the beams in the middle of the wall. All the joints should be made in the corners. Look at that huge gap at the top. The beam had shrinked dry. That is badly designed. Now we get to the detail of the walls. And the house stood for 3 years. It stood for 3 years not painted. What are the consequences? It wasn't protected from the aggressive environment, and from the sunny side it started to dry fast. And because it wasn't coated, it has got lots of checks. To see it clearly, take a look at the end faces. The end faces were not coated. They started to dry intensively. Having less moisture, these fibers started to contract rapidly, ripping the beam apart. If it was taken care of in time, and sun wouldn't burn it for 3 years in a row, those checks, well, they might have had appeared, but definitely not that much. We left part of the house unprepared. This is the part of the wall that we're gonna sand and prepare now. The house stood for 3 years, so it has got another problem. It started to get yellow from the sun, then it will turn gray. To fix that, we have to sand it a lot. Just a planetary machine sanding has no use here. We will have to do sanding twice. First time with the rotary machine, we take off the layer of wood. The second time, we prepare the beams to get painted. With the planetary machine, we remove the scuffs from the rotary. You'll see in detail how to get these beams ready to apply oil, varnish or paint. I'll try to explain why you cannot apply a protective coating to the surface like that. It will not stick to it, it will flake. Here resides the dust. This gray layer is already dead. If you paint it, any type of coating will peel off. Now we'll go and see the building that the owner tried to paint by himself. I'll explain why you really have to sand it. Don't miss such an important nuances, subscribe to the channel, learn sanding and painting any wooden house. Here we have a live example of a film-forming material applied to an unprepared surface. And that's a common mistake. Here, take a look at these tiny lines. These are the scuffs from the cutter, when it passes along to cut off the top layer of the wood to make a desired geometry. And the surface wasn't sanded, it was painted straight away. And it didn't stick, it formed a film, because it's a film-forming coating. It formed a very thick layer of film, because the surface wasn't sanded properly. And the coating didn't penetrate the wood. The surface is compressed due to machining. Paint or varnish slips on it. It doesn't penetrate the wood and stick to it, and then it just peels off like that. So, to get a good adhesion, you always have to sand it properly. Finishing with a grit size 80 to 100 is a preparation for painting. You cannot ignore it, because otherwise your surface wouldn't work well. There won't be enough adhesion between the product and the surface, and it will start to peel off. Just like that. And all this has to be redone. The coating falls off the surface. Also, very important nuance. Even if the surface is prepared badly or not prepared at all, the most common mistake when painting it is putting very thick layer of material. There was a film-forming coating, and looking at the marks from the brush, there's too many applied. It's 2 or 3 times more coating than necessary applied. There's such a thing as permeability, and when the wood is not breathing, it starts to reject the coating, and it starts to peel off. You have to put on as much of a product as it is stated in the instruction manual, no more, no less. When you are done with the sanding and cleaning, and your house is ready to be painted, the question of choosing the color arises. Paint samples should be done on a particular logs or beams that you are gonna paint. It's impossible to choose color from the wood samples at the market. Each type of wood absorbs the coating differently and has its own humidity, so the color looks different. You put it on your particular wood, let it dry, and then you see a final color that you're gonna have. Note that we left the section of the wall unprepared. Here it is prepared. We'll have to sand it with a rotary machine. Take off as much as it's needed, even if it's close to a millimeter, so that it becomes light. As you can see here, we sand it until it becomes even in color. And only then we get to the finishing with a planetary machine. There should be no trails, spots or lines left. It should be sanded, especially if it stood for 3 or 5 years, up until a clean white wood. Take a note on the important aspect. I've sanded all the surface of the beam, but I've done it a bit more in the middle, a bit less on the sides. It's maybe hard to see it on camera, but the yellow sides are not done right. You have to sand up to a clean white wood. It's yellow at the moment. I'll sand it down and you'll see how it turns white. You have to sand it down to a clean wood, without any dark spots, otherwise it's not done correctly. The beam should have a flat, even and white surface. Note the end faces. Here we have it sanded and prepared. They are as smooth as the wall. And here the end faces are not done, they are porous. It's a collector for dust and moisture. It's hard to take care of, and if you're gonna coat it, it's gonna absorb too much oil. So you have to prepare it for the painting very carefully. The most effective way to clean up after sanding is not vacuuming the surface, but blowing it with a compressor. You blow off the dust from all the checks and cavities, and you do that very effectively all over the surface. Note it's full of dust and particles, and I'm removing it completely from the log, from all the cavities and checks. Paint quality depends on it, because brush is gonna spread the dust. We have a front surface done and prepared, but it's very important to do these cavities. It takes time and it's hard to do, but this is the most vulnerable part of the beam. It will gather most of the dust and the particles, and these slots will be getting lots of moisture. They should be sanded properly and prepared for the painting. Alright guys, just don't confuse the definitions. All that wasn't preparing wood for the paint. With a rotary machine we removed an old layer of wood. We removed yellow and grey stain. And now we have to prepare the beams for the paint. Using a planetary machine, we'll carefully sand it, because if we start painting it right now, the round scuffs will be seen all over the place. That will not be good. The surface will not be smooth, and it will be hard to take care of. When we will get it prepared for the painting with a planetary machine, then the oil will cover it nicely. There will be no marks, and it will last long. That's an important bit about durability. Once again for you to remember, with a rotary machine we removed an old wood that was a grid size of 80. With a planetary machine we prepare the beams for the painting. The grid size is 80 and 100. We are not going deep into that. We'll make separate videos for sanding and painting, and in that videos we will show how to choose the right tool for the job, what disc types are best to use to get the most out of the budget spent on your wood, and how to do it with top quality and effectiveness. After you have sanded and prepared the surface, you've blown off all the dust, you get to the painting. We always recommend to use a primer, and we spray the primer with an airbrush, paying close attention to get it into checks and cavities, to get the beams protected and insulated all over the surface. But the painting is always done with a brush, and now you're gonna see how we do it. Very important nuance when you're starting to paint is choosing the right brush. The brushes should be short, dense, and it should be thick, and it should resist well, so that you can spread the oil. It shouldn't be soft, and you should be able to really stretch it upon. Also, the most essential thing, painting is done from one corner and all the way down to another. If we stop in the middle and start doing another beam, we'll have a joint in that place. We're gonna paint it with a German oil, it gets absorbed very quickly, it has to be well spreaded and rubbed in before it dries. We'll show you that in the detail to get the best understanding. We show it how to prepare the house. We show it how to paint it. Now we have the first layer down, and it has to dry for 8 hours. Then we will put the second layer on. In the next video, we'll show in detail the assembly of a round log of a 26 diameter. Don't miss it, subscribe to the channel, and you will see many important things about log house assembly. And of course, how to get the best rounded logs for your house.